The thing about depleted uranium is pretty much it's mostly depleted uranium. It's not actually, it's not like considered safe. Wearing depleted uranium body armor would always lead to sterility in like 30 years or 20 years. It is mostly depleted uranium, and even being around it is actually considered dangerous. Like being around depleted uranium will always lead to basically sterility and even some long-term radiation effects. But it is considered safe, basically. But it's only mostly safe. They're not really actually safe. It's not really actually safe, but mostly it's just like, you know, slightly higher radiation levels, pretty much, if you're around. I have the oldest depleted uranium, and where it's actually pretty much safe to actually be around, because it's been in existence millions or billions of years, pretty much. And the LSF-71 was one of those things where it had the lowest radiation signature, and you could tell that it had basically been somewhere for a very, very long time. In fact, they estimated the actual age of the SR-71 to be somewhere closer to 150 million years old, or at least the metal had been around that long, possibly. Anyway, I'm not really sure. You'll have to take a Geiger counter yourself and go up to the LSF-71 and do your own Geiger counter test. But basically, it had been inside of Earth's atmosphere and around our protective shield or whatever for maybe a billion years. I'm not exactly sure. But basically, when you go to space, it picks up a little bit more radiation, and when you come back in, it picks up, becomes less radioactive. Anyway, so until it, well, I mean, there's a difference between inert or true radioactivity and then picked up radioactivity. See, picked up radioactivity is basically just a couple protons or whatever on the outside. It's all about radiation and how it affects metal and everything else like that. But basically, it doesn't, you know, there's a difference between radiation that is absorbed and radiation that comes from within or whatever. Anyway, I don't really care, but it's just something about the whole physics and everything is high end stuff. And anyway, I just had lots of depleted uranium lying around, and I was like, well, let's build a ship out of it. So anyway, and maybe have something to do with space or whatever. Anyway, it's really thin, really hard, really strong metal, basically, and really dense and heavy. But that's the beauty of it, is that you can easily get something that's nearly unbreakable. Like I said, this knife made out of depleted uranium, if you made this knife out of depleted uranium, it would never, you couldn't break it. Like this much metal made out of depleted uranium would be nearly indestructible, and possibly even never dull its edge. Anyway, I don't know. It's very cool stuff, and it's very hard and strong. Anyway, whatever. Go talk to a metallurgist and you can get it. But basically, there's a reason why they have most depleted uranium inside of a case, and that is because it is actually radioactive and does give off radiation constantly. And basically, prolonged. You can make keychains and other stuff around out of it, but basically, it's always going to be radiating you, and you'll basically be sterile within 30 years or something like that. So it's dangerous to have around you. And I would not advise wearing body armor made of it or anything. Now, titanium is one metal removed from depleted uranium. It's a little bit up or something like that. Anyway, though, and it's perfectly safe and basically can be foundried the same way. Basically, in the metal stack, there's gold, uranium, or there's uranium, titanium, blah, 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 blah. It all filters out to the different perspective areas, where you have gold somewhere up here as a soft or light metal, or something like that. But in the hard metal stack or whatever, and if you have a 100-foot tower of really hot metal, like 50,000 degree metal, you can basically get all these different levels of metal. And they'll basically, each little atoms of each or whatever will combine, and basically it'll filter down and basically slowly work its way down to where you have all these different particles. Basically, the particles in the rock turn into like a fog, basically, and as they drift down, they recombine and change and pick up. Well, they're picking up different little elements from all different little molecules or minerals from all the different little particles, to where they eventually become big enough or whatever. They become gold. in a 100-foot stack, you'll drop in granite rock at the top, and it'll go, and on the way down, the bonds will loosen, and it'll become whatever, and filter out. And then basically as it goes down, it'll basically pick up nutrients or molecules on the way down until it basically settles at its prospective spot where it wants to be, which is basically gold, uranium, whatever. It's basically the more complicated the thing, and I think it has to do with how long you let it sit at the really high temperatures or whatever. But basically it'll become one of these things where it loses all the other crap. And that's how you get aluminum or something at the top. I'm not exactly really sure. You have to talk to a metallurgist and basically a person that works with like a super collider or whatever to actually figure out what all these things are and how they all work. But basically it's all just particles and how the particles combine at different levels. And pretty much you need heat to actually loosen the bonds of minerals. Basically you take a rock and get it really hot and it becomes all gooey and stuff. And that's when the particles start to separate and start to actually like a little molecule will go, I don't like you. Yeah, okay, I think I want one of these. The molecules will, they loosen up and release certain amounts, and basically go back into like a static state, and then they pick up other little things on the way down, something like that. Anyway, that's the general basic idea of the stack and the high heat level. Anyway, and there's lots of things like magnetic and stirring the pot and all that other stuff. You can use magnets to basically force the molecules. I think if you apply a magnetic stream on one side, you can get the stuff to migrate to one side of the containment vessel or the other side. And there's ways of basically doing stuff, and you can mess around with it and all that kind of stuff like that. Basically, magnetics, high heat, and all kinds of other stuff basically leads to all kinds of fun things where you can actually make gold and all these rare minerals and what's called. And you can pretty much make as much as you want from just about anything. From dirt, you can just take it in, put it in there, and it'll separate into the different perspective whatevers. Anyway, yeah, and that's basically high-end metal foundry. Lots of heat and and basically magnetic poles. You put an electromagnet on one side, magnet on the other side, and you can go and shake up those molecules really good and get them to separate and then recombine into all kinds of weird things by going using magnetics. Magnetics, heat, and everything else are basically how everything is made in the universe or something like that. Anyway, you can do all kinds of cool stuff at home or at work, and that's pretty much how you do it. You basically, you use these things, water power, and basically huge magnets, basically lots of magnets, and basically and use a lot of heat and play around with it until basically you're getting rivers of gold. Anyway, there's a lot of different aspects to the whole particles and metal foundry and how to get them to loosen up and then recombine into all kinds of new and unusual forms. But pretty much there's the basic ideas of all of it right there. And that's pretty much what they did, and what they do, and what we did. Anyway, and that's what led to the LSF-71 and even the LSFA rocket ship. Anyway, whoop-de-fucking-do. Anyway, and then after that, a bunch of crazy drug addicts, JFK, Nixon clones, and other people basically ran around. He was basically just a sex bot that was very confused. And whatever. And Rodney was very confused himself as a basically cocaine freak that was running around. So anyway, whatever. But yeah, high-end metal foundry. Not all that hard to do, really. Because it's like, how do you stir a really hot pot that you can't touch? Magnetism! And electromagnets. Causes all the different protons to go to one side, and then all the protons to go, and all the electrons to go to the other side, and do all kinds of weird, funky stuff in metal that no one thought was even possible. And that's how you make gold and all kinds of other stuff. There's lots of aspects to it. You just play around with it until you get it.